Well, hi, everybody. It's Wednesday afternoon in lovely Champlin, Minnesota. It's overcast here today, which means that we are regretting letting our faithful leader, Dave, take a week off and go to somewhere sunny. So hopefully he's not listening, and hopefully he's enjoying himself instead. My name is Trigby. I am the Director of Buzz Development here at BizzyWeb. Just wanted to say hello to everyone who's out there. With me, as always, is my faithful technical assistant to make sure I don't screw up too many things. Jenna, say hi, Jenna.
Hello.
Jenna just got back from having her wisdom teeth out. Jenna, do you feel dumber now that your wisdom teeth are out?
A little bit, yeah, but I'm not sure if that's the loss of my teeth or the medication that I'm on.
It could be one or the other. Hopefully, it won't last too long. So, for those of you who are new to the BizzyWebinar, this is something that we do once a week here at BizzyWeb, and we are happy to do it. Just as a couple of administrative notes, this is going to be a fairly detail-heavy. A lot of details, a lot of information, and we're going to try and get you out of here by 1 o'clock Central Time. So if we do go too fast, please, by all means, reach out to us at the contact information that we're providing at the bottom of the screen so that you know exactly that we're out here and available for you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so everybody can see what we are looking at here, to make sure everything's working out great, and you'll be treated to a quick temporary picture of my dog Moose, who is home today. And if you can see on the screen, I wanted to make sure, I felt like the last picture I put on these was just really terrible. So this is a picture of my son and I at his at the costume contest at his preschool. So once again, my name is Trigby. I'm the Buzz Development Director here at BizzyWeb. If you need the PowerPoint after the fact, please go ahead and reach out to me. Second, for those of you who are joining us live, thank you for joining us live. We are, if you look at the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a blue tab. That'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. Jenna is monitoring the questions as well as making sure that I don't screw anything up. So she will interrupt me and make sure that if you have a question, I answer it in somewhat of a timely fashion. Just for fun and games, we've got a lot of people on the call today. If you're interested, I'd really love to know where you are in the world. So feel free and write where you are in the world on the left-hand side of the screen. So, quick plug for us here at BizzyWeb. We are a full-service digital marketing agency. That means we take care of anything and everything under the sun as it relates to digital marketing. We develop websites, we develop digital marketing plans, including search engine optimization, including email marketing, which we're going to be talking about today, social media marketing, or a combination of all of the above. Jenna is one of our great writers on staff here. Well, that's not even really fair. She's kind of a catch-all person. We keep trying to give her stuff that she can't figure out how to do, and we just ran out of stuff after a while, so we're just happy to have her. So if you're interested in coming to visit, we'd love to have you up here at the Hive, and if you would like to stop in and learn more about us, we're certainly willing to do so. Here are some examples of some of the great websites we've done in the last 12 months, some of the great clients that we work with here at BizzyWeb. Today we're going to be talking about first impressions, especially when it comes to email. First thing that they see is crucially important. What they see is going to determine what they do next. Chances are you want them to read your newsletter or an announcement of some kind and then take a step. What is that step? Well, maybe you want them to visit your website, register for an event, donate to a nonprofit, or try a new product. This is where we come in today. Beautiful, professional-looking email designed to drive action is absolutely crucial to do that. People make snap judgments, even though it might not necessarily be fair, about whether or not to read your emails based on a very quick glance, because all of us get a ton of email. We choose an email, we give it a 2-second glance, and then we decide whether or not we're going to keep it and read it and do something. Otherwise, it ends up in the trash. So in the dark ages of the internet, a time in my life I like to call college, this is what email messages look like. It was all text. And if you notice kind of up towards the top on the left, you would have to send it to 300 people. And what invariably would always happen is you'd always have that one friend who thought that they were really funnier than they are, send you a note back, and they would hit the kiss of death for you as a marketer, which is the reply all button. The good news is that's changed. If you look at the email on the right, it's simpler. The branding is through. It's easy to read. That's what we're going to be talking about today. What are the steps that we can take in order to get people to actually read and do the action that we want to take? So what exactly is email marketing? Well, to make sure that we're all on the same page, here's how we define it here at BizzyWeb. It's delivering professional email communications to an interested audience containing information that the recipient finds valuable, not whether or not you think that's valuable, whether or not the recipient finds it valuable, that looks great in any inbox. And that's crucial, in any inbox. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. So what's the point of email marketing? What's the value in it? Well, first of all, it boosts repeat business. Once you give somebody a really great customer experience, the next step is to entice them to stay in touch and actually remind them of the great customer experience that you give. Email marketing is a wonderful way in which to do that. In addition, it also can create a tremendous amount of awareness, especially if your product lines are variable, like a real estate agent, or if your products change from time to time, which I guess now that I think about it is pretty much the same thing. It creates awareness, it increases awareness, and it's incredibly valuable as a result of that. Most importantly, though, it drives revenue and profit. It gives you the opportunity to, after you've reminded people of that great experience, to turn around and then buy from you again, or encourages them, your end users, to share with other people. So, harnessing the power of the inbox is a crucial element in any marketing toolkit and marketing plan. How do we do that? Are you ready? Let's go. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We talked a little bit about why email marketing. I'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of that. Second, harnessing the power of the inbox. Next, we're going to talk about growing a healthy list, creating great content, creating a beautiful mobile-friendly template that matches your brand. There are a lot of buzzwords in there. We're going to break them all down for you. How to get your email actually opened, how to track your results to make sure you know you're successful, and then finally putting it all together and getting some parts to start with. So let's start with the basics. Why are we going to choose email marketing as opposed to anything else? So, trivia question, feel free and answer this if you'd like. What is the #1 app on all smartphones? Jenny, do you think you have an idea?
I think I do, based on the subject of the webinar.
See, yesterday I did this exact presentation and somebody said Angry Birds.
Well, yeah, that's a close second.
Right, obviously. Well, I've maxed out my Angry Birds, so but she's right. We tipped our hand a little. It's email. And the reason it's email is that, statistically speaking, more than half of all emails across all templates, across all email clients, are opened on a mobile device. Why is that important? It means that no matter how important the creative is, how much you spend, how much time you work on it, people are going to be looking at it on a 4-inch screen. So keep that in mind as we go through. I'm going to remind you at important points. Fun fact, though, more people own a cell phone than own a toothbrush in this world. There are 4.9 billion smartphones in the world, and there are 4.6 billion toothbrushes in the world. So somewhere there are 300,000 people who you should be very glad are not actually talking to you in person through their smartphone. So why email? That's really the question that you've all been asking, which is why you're here today. The first answer I'd have for you is because it works everywhere. Because email is so portable. It's accessible on a PC. It's accessible from anybody else's computer. It's accessible from a tablet. It's even something on the supercomputer that we all carry around in our pockets every day. It's accessible and available everywhere. 88% of people regularly check email on their smartphones. That's more than checking social media, checking Facebook, or looking at videos. 91% of people check their email every single day on their phones. Email's reliable. most of the time, emails get delivered 90% of the time. Let me rephrase that because that made no sense. 90% of the time, emails get delivered. Facebook posts, on the other hand, statistically reach just 2% overall of your fans. So if you want a high rate of delivery, email is the way to go. And here's the punchline of the whole discussion. Email actually works. Email marketing has 3 times the conversion rate as social media. I'll say that again. Email marketing has 3 times the conversion rate as social media. For every $1 spent on email marketing, there's a good chance that you should be able to get another $44 out of that. So the rate of return is excellent. And as a small business owner, we want to make sure that we spend the least amount of money to make the most amount of money. This is the silver bullet when it comes to that. So why do you use an email service provider like Constant Contact, which is one of the sponsors of our presentation here today? The reason is email itself doesn't work on a mass level if you're sending out hundreds and hundreds. I talked about that friend that we all have, that jerk who hits the reply all button. There are other things that go along with that. Number one, you can only send a limited amount of emails at once. Generally, it's no more than about 50 emails at once. Second, there's no way to format it. There's no way to include things. There's no way to ensure that the presentation that you create is the presentation that your end user sees. Their filters are in play. There's no cohesive branding. You might have a potential spam complaint, which you might get turned into the government for that. And more importantly, there are no ways, if we just wrote an email like we see here, that is a retread from the dark ages of the internet, a time in my life I like to call college. There's no way to tell whether or not anybody read it. So how are we knowing if we're successful if we're just providing something and hoping? We simply don't. We want to make sure that we are able to track and report results on everything that we do. Email marketing automates all these best practices for you. So using something like Constant Contact or MailChimp or any email service provider, they provide you with hundreds of beautiful, mobile responsive, easy to use templates that are very much drag and drop. You get to reinforce who you are through your brand. Emails are only sent one-on-one, so it's only delivered to the recipient. It manages your lists and gives you the ability to even separate your lists into even smaller lists, so you're only sending information out to the people that truly only want to be there. And finally, and most importantly, it actually obeys the law. We like and we recommend Constant Contact, which is kind of when I say Constant Contact, really what I'm talking about is email marketing and an email service provider. That's what we use, and it forces you to obey the law at all times, which is one of the reasons why we like it here at BizzyWeb. So let's get into how to harness the power of your inbox. First question is, who do we send all this to? How do we grow our list? Well, the first thing I would tell you is you probably have more people in your life and more people in your inbox than you think you do. Growing your list is all about how you ask people if you can email them and where you ask. And yes, you do actually have to. One of the realizations that we face here at BizzyWeb is that we deal with a lot of small business owners who don't think they're in sales. They don't think they have to ask for anything. Now, unfortunately, most small business owners are sales first, sales second, and sales fourth through sixth. So we're going to teach you how to do this in an easy way so it's not as daunting and challenging. Why do we do this? Well, it's very important to have permission and direct response to actually email people, because there are a significant amount of laws in place to prevent really annoying emails. So first thing I'd recommend do is actually asking people, can I send you an email? If you, statistically speaking, we found that 6 out of 10 people will say yes if you just say, can I send you the email? If you just ask the question, you're going to be home free. Second thing you want to be sure to do is be straightforward and have integrity on what content you're going to send, when you're going to send it, and actually do those things. So if you're only going to send an email out once a month, then only tell people you're going to send out an email once a month. And then follow through on that. Then don't start sending out emails weekly. Make sure that you include an option to unsubscribe in every single email. That's very crucial, and that's one of the tenets of the Can Spam Act, is that you have to provide an unsubscribe button so that your audience can unsubscribe without having to talk to you. If you have a privacy policy, it's great to include that in your email to make sure that everybody knows that you are going to do what you say you're going to do. It lends credence to that. Finally, don't overwhelm. You want to make sure that you are not overwhelming people with too many emails. We've all gotten to that point where we get so many emails during a day from one person. We ask the question, gosh, what is that person doing today other than sending out emails? If you're doing that, that's too many. So I encourage you to plan strategically, and we're going to get into that a little more. So the Can Spam Act, I wrote out a couple of things here that are sort of the crucial tenets of following it. Number one, make sure that you get clear and obvious permission that you are, and clear and obvious intent that you will be emailing someone. Second, clearly identify who you are, who your business is, who your organization is. Include a valid mailing address, and by valid mailing address, I mean an actual, literal, physical mailing address that is not a P.O. box, a phone number, an email, or a web address. Ultimately, what I advise the clients that I deal with is to say, you should be able to have somebody get in their car, drive to your location, and punch you in the nose if you email them too much. I'm not advocating violence by any means, however. Fourth, inform them that they can unsubscribe at any time. Actually give them the opportunity to unsubscribe as well, and have a process to record express consent. So if you the best way to do that is to have a sign-up form on your website, but make sure that when you are getting consent that you are asking in a clear and coherent manner, and that everybody knows what they're getting into. So now we've talked about why you need to ask. Let's talk about where you should ask. The simple answer is everywhere that you are. Do it on your website, do it on your social channels, do it in the emails that you are sending to your audience. That might sound counterintuitive, because why would you ask people to sign up for an email that you just sent them? Remember, the goal of this is we want to entice the people that we've dealt with before to stay in touch, but we also want them to share their great experience with you with other people. So you never want to have them send out something on your behalf and then not have that friend of a friend be able to circle back and contact you. Here are a lot of other places you can do that. Collecting email addresses at an event. QR codes are great, either at events or a table tent, or in paper form. You can even have a text to join feature, which then you can put on a sidewalk sign if you've got a lot of foot traffic outside of your business. If you do speaking engagements, it's a great place to ask people for their email address so you can follow up and get feedback on how you did. If you are offering a bill, like in a restaurant or an invoice, make sure that you have a place on there that says, hey, can I have your email address so that we can follow up with you later. Fish bowls are great as well. That's a place, something where you ask a restaurant if you can put up a fish bowl, and then everybody who puts their business card in wins a prize of some kind. Usually it's lunch and an opportunity to hear from you. But really, remember what I said earlier, 6 out of 10 people will say yes if you just ask them. So you're already halfway there if you just ask the question. One of the things that's relatively new to Constant Contact specifically is text to join, and I mentioned this briefly. We think this is a fantastic option. It's something that we use for all of our clients. The way that this works is you have a keyword that gets texted to a specific number, and then once that happens, they get added to a contact list, and then finally you get an opportunity to text them back saying thank you for joining our list. So they get immediate gratification for doing the thing that you asked them to do. So don't forget, as we are moving on to the next topic, don't forget to give them a reason to join your list. Everybody gets many hundreds of emails on a daily basis. Give them a reason to look for yours. What are you going to give them to help them make their lives better? And also let them know when they're going to get it and how many times they're going to get it. It's a way that you can demonstrate authenticity and you can move forward and grow the relationship that you're dealing with. What are you going to talk about? Well, we're going to get into that next, but here's some quickie topics. You can ongoing education related to your product or the service or industry that you're in, insider news, VIP preferential treatment. That's great for customers to make sure that they consistently and constantly feel rewarded and feel special that they're working with you. An ebook is great as well. If you've got one written, that's a great thing to offer. Updates on how you're doing if you're running a particular campaign. Usually that applies to nonprofits, or even friends and family discounts. At the end of the day, the thing to keep in mind is that the number one reason that people unsubscribe from an email newsletter list is because it's boring. It's irrelevant content. It doesn't jump out and bite them and say, you need to pay attention today. I'm going to stop here before we move on and ask Jenna, do we have any questions? Has anybody asked yet that we need to answer?
No, it doesn't look like it. Not yet.
Super. Well, it must mean we're doing a good job then.
You're just so thorough that there's no possible questions.
Wow. All of you out there in webinar land, I hope you appreciate the high level of sarcasm she just threw down. So let's move on to content. This is especially relevant here to us in Minnesota because Minnesotans, by and large, don't like tooting their own horn. They don't like talking about what they're doing in a good and positive way. So let's go through some easy ways to do that. You don't have to toot your own horn and feel egotistical about what you're doing, because it's not always about you, but it is about what you know and how you know it. So the first place to start is, what do you have access to that other people don't? Well, number one, you're an industry leader because you are getting paid to do your job. And so therefore you are a leader in what you do. You have knowledge about what goes on in your job, and you have knowledge about how best to perform your job. Immediately you've got access to relevant information that somebody that you're trying to do business with would like to learn more about. Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you know how much is enough. Are you dealing with an audience that likes to have a lot of information on a regular basis, or are you looking for somebody who just wants to get information every once in a while? That in the sales process is known as dramatically overwhelming your client. I've been guilty of that a time or two. So it's important that you figure out quickly how much is enough and how much is too much. The third thing I'd recommend is turning questions into content. So what do I mean by that? Within your business, there are frequently asked questions that people come to you with all of the time. And usually there's a list of about 5 or 10 that you get asked every single time that you deal with somebody. Turn those questions into content. Instead of answering those questions over and over and over again, write an article about that first question that everybody always asks you. It'll help you in your sales process, but more importantly, it's going to give you some great content and a great way to demonstrate that you know what you are doing. Finally, remember that images are content too. And we'll get into images a little more down the road, but as we're looking for, sometimes a really great picture can truly speak 1,000 words. Before we go too far, though, I do want to remind you of one thing. The most important thing to do when writing is not to write for yourself. It is to write for your audience. What you think is great might not be what your audience thinks is great. The easiest way to know what is great for your audience is to actually ask them the question. Your email shouldn't be telling recipients every little single thing that you do, and it shouldn't include extraneous information. You can make it relevant to your audience by thinking about the conversations you have with your clients and your customers or your membership. After an interaction, you could even jot down something that helps you expand on a topic. Expand on a topic. People interact with email the way they do in the physical world. They're deciding whether or not to open the email, and they're deciding whether or not to go forward. So the first question that we have to ask is, what's going to stop them from hitting delete? And that's an immediate relevance. If we look at statistics as to why people don't stay with an email list, it's because 38% of the time will unsubscribe if it's boring. More importantly, and more of a death knell than being boring, is being irrelevant. The information you're sending isn't helpful or even relevant to the audience that you're sending, people are going to put you in the spam folder, and it's very difficult to get out of spam jail. So how much is enough? Well, if we were meeting in person, I'd have everybody throw up their hands and say, how many emails do you get in a day? Do you get 10? Do you get 20? Do you get 30? Do you get 50? Jenna, you're one of the primary points of contact here at BizzyWeb. How many emails do you get within a course of a day?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm subscribed to a lot of newsletters, so I get quite a lot. Probably business related, maybe, I don't know, like 20?
Got it.
Or so. Yeah.
So she gets 20 emails in a day. The question, and that's pretty light. I get probably close to 60 within a day. So when you get an email, Jenna, do you really are you excited to see a long, detailed email from a business?
No, that goes in the trash, right?
Yeah, you're looking for something that's more concise, easy to read, something that you can get through and absorb the information relatively quickly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's because less is more. There's no rule that says your newsletter has to have 3 articles or 3 pictures, but generally what we recommend is the following. Have no more than 20 lines of text, because human beings are visual animals first. The first thing they're going to look at is how much do they have to consume. And if it's more than 20 lines of text, you're gonna have a drop-off point. So 20 lines of text or less, 3 pictures or less, and that doesn't include your logo. It's just as pictures related to the content. Here's what happens if you have more than. Here's what happens. It's sort of a Wile E. Coyote jump off the cliff click rate. So what I mean by this is the more clicks places you have to offer your audience to click through, the more they're going to get confused and not do anything. So at the 1 or 2 level, it's people are going to click and take the action you want to take. From 3 to 5, there's a massively steep decline. Anything more than 5, people just aren't going to bother. So as you're including a call to action, which is the thing you are asking somebody to do, make sure you don't ask them to do more than a couple of things, because they just simply won't do it. So fewer links, more clicks. We talked about this earlier when we turn questions into answers. Here's some data from Jenna that I stole. So the questions that we got from some of our clients were, how do I ensure my pipes won't burst this winter? Which is big here in Minnesota. We could freeze, I don't know, as early as June, late as June, really. We have an accountant that we work with. And the question that they get asked frequently is, do I get to deduct mileage that I drive from work to home every single day? This was a winery question that we dealt with. They want to know how to pair a wine. So, and finally, how do I get more people to show up at my events? It's a question we get asked a lot here at BizzyWeb. So here's what Jenna turned everything around into the content for our customers. The email that she wrote for the pipes bursting, 5 ways to protect your pipes from freezing this winter. It's short, it's concise. You're not going to have to read 6, 7, or 8 things. There are 5 and you're done. For the mileage, she wrote answers to your top 3 mileage deduction questions. Okay, great. I'm going to get answers to my questions. There's only going to be 3. I'm going to get in, get out, I'm going to learn something, and I'm going to be better for it. For the wine pairing, what we wrote is red or white, 5 simple white wine pairing tips. And if you're looking for a wine pairing tip, I can tell you always choose white if you have fish. And then for the event registration aspects, that's one of the things that we do here at BizzyWeb, 10 ways to sell more tickets for your next event. So you see, as we put numbers associated with all of these, you feel good in going further because you know exactly what you're getting into ahead of time. We talked about images. Remember, human beings absorb things visually before they take any next step. So including a picture means that of anything really, as long as it's related to the content, means that people are going to take the next step forward and actually start reading the content. As a recommendation, Chocolate is a good place to start. If you're looking for a video, I don't think you can ever go wrong with a cute cat video. Communicating through images, however, there are some good rules of thumb to follow. So number one, make sure that every image that you provide is clickable. And what I mean by that is if you are asking somebody to do a thing and they click on an image, the last thing you want to see happen is have them go to the image again. By clicking on the image, it should take them somewhere and do a thing. Second, make sure that you keep your key action above the scroll line. What exactly is the scroll line? That's that break in the computer screen that if I want to learn more, I have to scroll down. So the most important thing has to be first and foremost. And third and finally, make sure that you limit choices. Make sure that you know you're not going to be providing more than a couple of choices for people to make, because if you do, they're not going to know which you want to choose. So a couple of things as it gets to relating images and using content as images. Google has this great images search function, which is sort of a double-edged sword. You get to look through a lot of really pretty pictures, but that does not mean that you get to use them license-free. You absolutely, anytime you're using an image in a promotional sense, you have to have rights to use that image. There are a lot of places online that you can get free images for use, and we can certainly recommend about a dozen of them that we recommend to our clients if you'd like. However, sometimes you want to go to a photo house and you see a photo that you like, you shouldn't have to spend more than a couple of bucks for it. If you buy a photo, make sure that you get the right size photo. You want to make sure that for the usage that you're using, either for print or for web, you're getting the right DPI rate, which stands for dots per inch. If you're using something for print, it needs to be 300 DPI. If it's for web, it needs to be 72 DPI. In doing so, you avoid copyright issues. You are giving credit where credit is due by offering up a couple of bucks and getting permission to use it. If you don't want to actually buy stock photos or use free photos that are available on the internet, what's the easiest way around that? Actually take your own photos. Keep in mind that all of us are equipped with a really great camera that's in our pocket and easily available to email out of. So worst comes to worst, start with your phone. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got an iPhone 6 and I think it's an 8-megapixel camera, which is sufficient. So some of the stock photo sites that we like, Big Stock Photo is great, and you can see the address on screen there. Stockvault.net is another one. And finally, freeimages.com is a great place. I'll give you a second to write those down if you like. So now that we've created some really great content, how do we put that into a framework that we can ensure consistency and ensure that our audience always sees it the way that we want to see it? So we're going to move on to creating a beautiful mobile-friendly template that matches your brand. Why do we do this? Well, we want to make sure that we look great in order to get people to open the email, but we also want to be recognized as our company in any inbox. You can see the difference here between how an email renders on a PC versus how it renders on a phone. It's a little different, but the differences are striking. We want to make sure that that we are consistent along all costs. When you use a service like Constant Contact or any email service provider, they will provide you with a number of templates. I think the last time we counted, Constant Contact had close to 700 different templates. Best thing you can do is select a mobile-friendly template that matches what the message that you're trying to put out is. Make sure that in doing so, as you create your email, that your brand is consistent everywhere. So how it looks on a phone needs to be how it looks on a PC, and it needs to be how it looks on a tablet. Here's some examples that we provided. So if you're going to do a newsletter, most of the time it's done monthly or quarterly. The content is usually educational or newsy, and that's the version of the email that was done on from a mobile device. If you're doing an announcement, well, what's an announcement? It's usually an event or a promotion or a targeted message, like a new product or a special event. That's really driven by the date or the event that you're doing it. And if you're doing a promotion, which usually gets into either offering a deal or offering a coupon, that's usually done bi-weekly, every other week, or monthly. Make sure, though, when you're doing a coupon that you limit the time that you have, that your audience has to actually redeem it. Here in Minnesota, we have a company that makes leather goods. They make leather jackets and belts and wallets for men and women. I'm sure you've known it and seen it before. And they've been having a going out of business sale for going on close to 20 years now. There's no sense of urgency there. There's no feeling that you have to run in to get a special deal today, because we all know darn well that they're going to be going out of business in a month, just as easily as they are today. So as we're talking about being recognizable everywhere, make sure that you use the same logo. You're consistent with your colors across all platforms. I offered you 3 here: how you look at an email, how you look on your website, and how you look on your social channels. All absolutely need to match. And secondly, and the most important thing that I can say when it comes to this slide, is make sure that the language is consistent. I used to think I was a good writer until I met Jenna, and I've been shocked at how many times she can point out that emails or a website or some sort of content was written by more than one people. Make sure that the voice is consistent across everything that you do. That's a challenge for those of you who are having some people do your email, some people do your social media, some people actually writing your website. So that's something you really need to look at. The best way that I can suggest you do that is take 3 pieces of content and read them out loud. If it sounds different to you, chances are it's going to sound different to your audience as well. Here's another great example of a website. This is a copywriter. You can see that great picture of the typewriter. You immediately get a feel of what they do and how they create it. So as he wrote his email, he used that same image and that same feel and sizing of all of his website, so that it looks consistent, and you know immediately, without actually even reading the content, who it's from and what you can expect from getting it. Well, that's all fine and good, but how exactly do we get our email open? Well, I'll get into that in just a sec. I will ask Jenna, do we have any questions that we need answered?
Nope, not yet.
Great. Just a reminder, if you've got a question, feel free on the right-hand side of your screen in the blue bar to ask that question. Jenna will interrupt me, and we'll get your question answered as soon as possible. So how do we get that email open? Here's a simple recipe for success. Number 1, make sure that you're using a single column template. If you use more than one column, as enticing as that might be, it's not going to render as appropriately on a mobile device. Second, make sure you use fewer than 3 images. And this does include your logo. Remember, we are visual animals first. If we are overwhelmed by stuff and overwhelmed by how much processing and RAM it's going to take to ingest your email, we're not going to do it. Third, fewer than 20 lines of text, no more, no less, and no more than 3 to 5 links. Any more than that, remember that Wile E. Coyote cliff that I showed you a little earlier. It will just immediately fall off that cliff. You're not going to get any results. The key action for what you're doing absolutely has to be above the scroll line, because you want to make sure that everybody can see it and everybody can take that one key action that you want it to take. So you also want, now that we've kind of walked through a couple of tips, here's the crux of the matter. You want to give them a reason to pay attention. You want to give them an emphasis to actually take the action you want to take. So the 4 reasons that I have when I am paying attention are as follows. Number 1, who sent it? I know a lot of people. I've dealt with a lot of people in my time here at BizzyWeb, and I've never met anybody named Info. But I get a lot of emails from companies that have the email address info@abccompany.com. Unless your name is actually Info, you shouldn't be sending out emails from Info. And I've probably insulted anybody in the audience named Info, so if I did, I apologize. Second, offer a compelling subject. We want to give our audience a reason to read it. If you don't think your subject line is compelling enough, chances are good you're probably going to have to revise it. Third, good timing. Is the email being sent to your audience at a time where they're most receptive to reading it, or is it at the absolute worst time? And then finally, is there an easy share option? If I think this is interesting content and I remember you and remember the experience that I got from you, then I'm going to want to tell other people about it. I am going to want to share that experience with my friends, because that validates me and that validates the decision that I made. So I want an easy share option. If I don't have easy shares, I'm going to be gone. So let's talk about the first one. How do people know you best? And if your name isn't info or admin, you shouldn't be sending out emails. If you're a real person, send out emails as a real person. Even if you're just a one-person shop, you are the face of the company. Make sure that the from email and the from name is recognizable to who you genuinely are as a person. And then you want to make sure that it is consistent across all of your social channels. And email is considered a social channel because it's an interactive communication tool. Statistically speaking, when we asked people why do you open an email, more than 35% of them said the subject line, and that was the most important thing for them. So the question that we want to ask ourselves before we send out an email is are we telling people that this is worth reading? Identify your purpose, be clear. Occasionally you can be a little bit clever, and entice them. Use a little bit of teaser text. That's kind of like offering an appetizer before the meal. You're whetting the appetite of what they're going to get when they go a little further. And customize the message. Make sure that it is relevant, because we all get those messages from that Nigerian prince who's got $6 million. If we just give him our bank account, we want to make sure that it is custom if possible. Even having something that is delivered to the individual person personally. That being said, you want to choose your words carefully. All the words you can see on the screen here are bad words to use, because they will dramatically increase the potential for you to get dumped into a spam folder. Free is a big one. Save is another one. Anytime you write in all caps, that will almost immediately get you sent to spam. Finally, the best recommendation I can give you is if you are starring in a telenovela on Telemundo, then you absolutely can write emails with several exclamation points. But if you're not, never do it, because that will almost immediately get you sent into spam. Size matters when it comes to email, and not the way you think. You want to keep it clear, keep it clever, but most importantly, keep it short. Remember that half of all people are going to be looking at our email on a mobile device. So on a mobile device, typically no more than 30 to 40 characters will appear clearly on a mobile device, at least in the subject line. By and large, 6 to 10 words. We found that no more than about 6 or 7 gives you the greatest response. That first about 20 words in your email, which typically goes into the pre-header to kind of give people a preview of what they might see. Make sure that those are as enticing as possible. And then finally, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, 51% of all email is open on a mobile device. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out how much to do. The simpler the better, because somebody's going to look at it on a 4-inch screen. So how do we, now that we've determined that, the next question is, well, when do we send it? That was the second point, is when are we actually getting the email? Well, how often is the first thing to keep in mind. We talked about this a little earlier. When you are creating your email list, you want to make sure that you clearly lay out expectations of when people and what people are going to be getting, and make sure that you follow through on that. Next, I encourage you to coordinate your timing across emails and social channels so that you get the highest result. Social media is not a silver bullet. It is not an autonomous robot. It is a megaphone in which you can speak your message through, and your email marketing can certainly be a message that you can push through. Or obviously when it's urgent, when you have something that's really exciting, if you're suddenly having a 50% off sale for anyone who comes in the next half hour, those are the kind of things that it's okay to send, and when to send it. We have a formula that we use on the day and time, but it boils down to a couple of things. Number one, when is your audience most likely to read it? And that generally gets into what day is it best sent and what time is it best sent. We once had a client that the best time that we had for their audience to take the action was on Saturday morning at 9:30 in the morning. Don't know why, but that's just what we found through our research, and so we got the best result for our client based on that. Constant Contact will tell you that the best time to send out an email is between Tuesday and Wednesday from 10 to 3, but Constant Contact has 1.5 million subscribers that might get lost in the shuffle. Here's what we recommend based a little on industry. So if you're a restaurant, best time to send out your email first thing Monday morning. Nobody likes being at the office first thing Monday morning. They're going to immediately start thinking about lunch. Feed that need for thinking about lunch. Accountants and financial advisors, we found the best time is Tuesday at 6. Hotels, inns, anything service industry oriented, really the best time is to send out an email is Wednesday morning. If you are part of a religious organization, we found that the best time to send out email communication is right before the weekend. So Thursday, sort of at that noon mark. And then if you are an arts and craftsman and you're sending out an email like where you're going to be this weekend selling your wares, Friday morning is usually the best time to do that. But how do you know what's right for you if you don't fill into those 5 buckets? Here's how you test the day, and here's how you test the time to make sure that it works appropriately. Split your list into 2 different audiences. Call them list A, list B. Next, create an email. Send that email out to your audience in 2 different times of the week. Hypothetically, Tuesday and Friday, let's say. Then the next thing you're going to do is actually check and see when did we get it, what was the result that we got, and did it meet our expectations? What was the highest rate of return for our investment of time and money did we get? Once we've figured out what that hypothetical day is, we want to do the same thing with the time of day. Use the same 2 audience lists, send it out on our hypothetical best day and with the best open rate, and then check our results to see which of those 2 tests got us the best open rate. Couple of things as we're as we're wrapping up the when and where. Remember that email with social sharings buttons, which is in the middle of the email there. It's the Facebook, the LinkedIn, the Twitter buttons. Those increase click-through rates to the social channels by more than 150%. So again, as easy as possible it is to give your audience the opportunity to share the information you're providing, they will take you up on the opportunity. Constant Contact calls it the share bar, and what you're really doing there is asking people on a very small micro level to like what you're talking about, to share it with other people, or even retweet or pin it. That's different than the social media buttons. The social media buttons will actually take you directly to the social media channel, whereas the share bar will, if you click that, it will take you to the social media channel, but also create a post for you. So all of this boils down to results, and all of this boils down to the $64,000 question of, if I put in the time, what can I expect to get out of that? The short answer to that is it completely depends on you and your industry and your audience, but here's how you figure out how you're going to be successful. Tracking your results gives you the opportunity to define what success is at the beginning of your campaign, and then actually know how whether or not how you've gotten there and whether or not you've actually gotten there. But it's important to realize that not all of the numbers that you get as part of your analytics are as important as other numbers. When you are focusing on the open rate, what the open rate really is it's a definition of the size of your audience. It's not a point of success on a metrics level. Really what you want to be focusing on is, did people take the action you wanted to take? That's really the first definition of success. Otherwise, you're putting an electronic billboard in front of people. And I can't tell you the last time I passed a billboard that was impactful enough for me to take an action. So focus on the people that actually take the actions. And then if you're not sure how to improve upon that, use the data to make your next decision to improve upon your results. A survey that was done recently, small businesses were asked about the value of reports and analytics, and that 75% said that it provides a competitive advantage for their business, and it also helps them retain customers. So actually focusing on reports and making what you do be a question of math and not trusting your gut will give you a great advantage. Here are some of the metrics that matter to us at BizzyWeb. From the open rate perspective, yes, it defines who our audience is. However, because emails get paged through very, very quickly, that's not always a reliable piece of information because it can trigger a false positive. The first one that we start with that we think is important is the click-through rate. It shows us who's engaged, who's actually taking the action. However, it doesn't actually show any ripple effect from the sharing. So if I get an email and I share it with Jenna and then Jenna shares it with another person, that doesn't mean that I get analytics on what Jenna does, only what I get as the first author. Shares is another great analytic tool to look at. It tells you what the content that your audience is seeing that they find is the most valuable. So the problem is it only tells part of the story if you don't provide them a click. What I mean by that is your newsletter should send people back to your website. I know a guy who I respect very deeply. He's very influential in the Minneapolis-St. Paul business community. He provides his entire email story that he provides in every email. He has no idea who read it and who didn't because he doesn't ask them to take an action. A couple of more. If somebody opts out from your email, it gives you a great opportunity to learn what isn't working. And it gives you a great opportunity to make an appropriate change. Finally, your bounce rate is something you get a lot of information about. A bounce rate is anything that wasn't delivered. Constant Contact will actually tell you why it wasn't delivered. So are they on vacation? Is it a bad email? Did you get sent to spam? Did they unsubscribe? That helps you keep your delivery rates high once you know that people are interested and you can separate out and call the herd for the people that aren't. Here's what the click-through actually looks like if you're in Constant Contact. Here's how many clicks we got. Here's what the click-through rates are, and here is specifically what they did. In this particular campaign, you can tell that the third one, the online booking click-through, is the most valuable for these people. So as we create the next email, we want to focus on presenting that piece of information, that online booking form, first and foremost, because people are going to take the action based on what the metrics are. Here are a couple scenarios on making decisions that based on metrics. So what if your results are low? Don't quit. We'll run through a couple of actions that you can start taking today in order to improve upon that. So if you've got a high open rate, that's great. You can make it even better, though, by making sure that your audience is interested, refining that time of day, getting some keywords that are relevant to your audience, and making sure that you're including that. If you've got a low click-through rate, well, then I'd encourage you to rethink your content and look at it a little more carefully. How do you do that? Have a strong call to action. Clearly state the action you are asking people to take and make sure that it is understandable. Make sure that the email is mobile friendly. You can even check using the Constant Contacts Analytics tool to figure out how many people are looking at your email on a mobile device. And finally, ask yourself the question, is it too long? However, if you got a low open rate but a high click-through rate, that's not necessarily perfect either. So the low open rate, improve it by checking that timing again, writing a strong subject line, and reevaluating your content. If you've got a high click-through rate, that's great. Offer some more links, segment your content to make sure that the content is relevant, and make sure that you are formatting the links to really stand out, to make it even better and grow on your success. One more thing before we go, make sure that you pay attention to who exactly is opening your email. Are you getting, if you're getting consistent opens, is it part of the super fan? What exactly is a super fan? Those are the people who are going to open your email and read your email and take the action that you want them to take every single time. The majority of email opens come from a very small group of emails. From readers. 38% of all opens come from just 5% of openers, and over half come from 10% of the openers. This isn't really uncommon. There's a lot of examples of the influencer concept in social media, but this is an argument for smart segmentation, making sure that the information that you're providing to your audience is going to the right place. In order to deal with that superfan idea, you want to make sure that the lion's share of actions are taken by other people as well. So we found that 33% of all click-throughs on those action decisions were taken by about 5% of the overall clickers, and 44% of click-throughs came from just 10%. So the key point is that superfan concept is similar. This is an opportunity to put a special offer in front of those super clickers, either by sending it them ahead of the pack or selectively sending to them. Remember, at the end of the day, everybody wants to feel special. So rewarding those raving fans by giving them something that is special and unique to them is going to remind them how great they are, that you are, and that you want to come back and deal with them again and again. So we got a few minutes left. How do we put all this together into a coherent plan? Well, here's a couple of points that I recommend. First of all, keep in mind that you can do this. You do have a competitive advantage over your competitors because your customers love you and your customers think that the work that you do is fantastic. 3 simple steps I recommend to get started. Number 1, get your contact list together. Even if it's just 5 people, that's 5 people more on your list than you had yesterday. Create a campaign, just one campaign, give it your best shot. Send it out and watch what works. Learn from what works. Learn also what doesn't work. Do what works and avoid doing what doesn't work. Here's what an ideal email looks like if you're considering this. Number 1, the preview pane. You can see that the Half Moon Yoga Studio, it's easily listed as who the person is, and the subject line is short and punchy. Subject line again here, add yoga to your summer to-do list. That's only about 8 words, and it's no more than about 35 characters. The business name is included, and so we know exactly of where it's coming from. There's the share bar, so everybody knows as they're getting into it and starting to read the content that we are asking them to take an action. We do that by placing the share bar first. The template is great. It's a mobile responsive template. It has the coloring that matches. The logo is right in the middle. If you weren't going to have it right in the middle, it can be on the left-hand side. The branding is the same. You notice the green in the background is the same green in the Half Moon Yoga Studio logo. The pictures are few and far between. There are only 2 pictures on this, and all of these pictures are clickable. And remember, less is more. Your eyes immediately drawn to that one call to action, which is to sign up today for a class. And that's above the scroll line in the email. And remember that any more than 3 clicks, your click-through rate is going to drop off significantly. Finally, at the bottom, we've started with social media. We end with social media as well. So we've asked people to share, but even if you don't want to share, we'd like you to become part of our community at the bottom. This is what we consider an ideal email. This is a lot going on, and also not a lot going on at the same time. Small business marketing for us here at BizzyWeb boils down to a couple of different points and a couple of different things that I want to share with you as we're leaving today. Small business is about nurturing relationships. It's about delivering on your promise, and it's about getting measurable results. Everybody can do this. You can do this. So I'm going to stop here before we go and say, ask if we have any questions from our audience that we need to answer. For any follow-up questions, did we get, Jenna?
I don't see any.
Wonderful. A couple of thank yous I want to offer you as a result of you bearing with me and politely laughing, hopefully, at my bad jokes. Number one, if you are interested in taking part, we do provide a link on our website at buzzyweb.com/cc to sign up for Constant Contact. It's a 100% 2-month guarantee for free. They will never ask you for a credit card until you're ready to purchase. Plans start at about $20 a month. There's never a contract. So in 3 months' time, if it doesn't work, you can get out of it very easily. And a couple of resources that if you want to continue, obviously, because you're here with us today, you're familiar with our BizzyWebinar. We also have trainings in person in and around the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, which we post on our website. I encourage you to take a look at that as well. Finally, Constant Contact has a great marketing library and has a great amount of resources that include guides, videos, some infographics, even some webinars that they did. I encourage you to take a look at that if you have some questions about marketing or reach out to us. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. Thank you for sharing. Once again, this has been the BizzyWebinar for Wednesday, March 16th. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.